You just lost a parent, and now on top of the grief, the paperwork, the phone calls to attorneys and banks, you're stuck. Because one sibling wants to sell the house and one doesn't. Or maybe it's more complicated than that. Maybe there are 3 of you and you want to sell, but one is digging in. Or someone is already living in the house and no one knows quite what to do about that. This is one of the most common situations I see, and I want you to know you are not alone in this, and it's not hopeless. Today, I'm going to walk you through what actually happens when siblings can't agree on selling an inherited home. What your real options are, what the legal system can and can't do, and how families get unstuck when it feels like there's no way forward. Stay with me through this whole video because the part most people miss and the part that costs families the most is not knowing there were options that they never explored. Before we go any further, if you're already in a situation where you need help and you just want to talk it through, the link to reach me is right there in the description. Reach out anytime. Now let's get into it. First, let's talk about why this happens so often. When a parent passes away, the home is rarely just a piece of real estate. It's the house where you grew up. It's where holidays happened. It's where your mom's furniture still sits exactly the way she left it. For some heirs, selling feels like closing a chapter they're not ready to close. For others, the financial reality of holding on to a property, the taxes, the insurance, the HOA, and the upkeep makes waiting feel impossible. And then there's the sibling who's been living in the house. Maybe they moved in to help care for a parent. Maybe they were renting from mom at below market rate. They just never left. And now the idea of selling means they have to find somewhere else to go, which makes this feel very personal because it is. There are real human situations, and when you mix grief with money and family history, it gets complicated fast. That's not a character flaw, that's just what this looks like in real life. So here's what you need to understand from a legal standpoint. In California, when multiple heirs inherit a property together, whether through a will, a trust, or intestate succession, they each own a fractional interest in that property. That means no single person can unilaterally sell it, and no single person can block everyone else from eventually forcing a sale. The legal mechanism that comes into play when co-owners can't agree is called a partition action. I want you to understand what this is, because understanding it will help you make better decisions before it ever gets to that point. A partition action is a lawsuit. One co-owner asking the court, a judge, to either physically divide the property, which almost never happens with a house, or force a sale and split the proceeds. And in California, courts will typically grant a partition by sale. The problem is this process is slow, expensive, and it's public. Attorneys' fees on both sides eat into what everyone receives. The house may sell at a price none of the heirs chose, or at a timeline none of them control. And the relationship inside the family, the ones you have to carry on for the rest of your life, often don't recover. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it because partition is what happens when no one finds a better path, and there almost always is one. Let me walk you through the real options families have before things escalate to that level. Option 1 is a sibling buyout. If one heir wants to keep the house and the others want out, it's entirely possible for that person to buy the other's shares. This requires agreeing on the home's value, usually through an appraisal. The buying sibling either has the cash, qualifies for a loan, or takes out a mortgage on their ownership stake. This is often the cleanest situation when one person has a deep emotional attachment and the means to make it work. It's not always available, but it's always worth exploring first. Option 2 is a structured delay. Sometimes the disagreement isn't really about whether to sell, it's about when. Maybe one sibling wants more time to sort through the belongings. Maybe there's a grandchild finishing a school year who's been using the house. Maybe one heir is dealing with their own life circumstances and just needs a few more months. In these cases, a written agreement between the heirs documenting a timeline, responsibilities for carrying costs during that delay, and what happens if someone doesn't follow through, can buy the family the breathing room they actually need. This works best when the disagreement is about timing, not principle. Option 3 is converting the property to a rental. This comes up most often when the market feels uncertain or when one sibling has a strong objection to selling, but no ability to buy the others out. Renting the home puts cash flow against the carrying cost and gives everyone time. But I want to be honest with you. This option has its own complications. Who manages the property? Who pays for the repairs? How are rental decisions made? And when owners disagree? What happens when one person wants to sell and the rental is occupied? Rentals can work, but they work best when everyone is genuinely aligned and the logistics are documented clearly up front. Option 4 is mediation. Before attorneys file anything, many families find real resolution through a neutral mediator, someone who isn't on anyone's side, whose job is to help all parties articulate what they actually need and find common ground. Mediation is significantly less expensive than litigation and significantly faster. It also keeps the conversation private. If you're at the point where families' conversations have broken down to a lawsuit feels like the nuclear option, mediation is best. Now I want to talk about something that often gets overlooked in these conversations, the practical side. Because even when families do agree to sell, there's a mountain of logistics that nobody's prepared for. That happens to everything inside the house. What happens to everything inside the house? Who handles the estate contents? The furniture, the collections, the boxes in the garage, the sentimental items that 3 different siblings all want. Who coordinates the contractors if the house needs to be worked on before it can go on the market? Who manages the cleaning, the junk removal, the repairs, the donation runs? This is where things break down, even among siblings who do agree. The decisions to sell is one thing, the execution is another. The families I work with often need an entire team around them, not just a single transaction. They need someone who can understand estate contents and can connect them with personal property specialists who know how to appraise and liquidate properly. They need organizers who worked in inherited homes and understand the emotional weight of that process. They need clean-out crews who handle it with care. They need contractors for interior and exterior work. Deferred maintenance, sometimes odor issues, or years of wear. Who operate on realistic timeline for an estate situation. They need movers if a sibling is transitioning out of the property. Sometimes they need senior transition support. They need referrals to estate attorneys and CPAs who understand California probate and trust law, can speak to the tax implication of what they're deciding. I've built relationships with all of these professionals because I've watched families get to the sale and realize they had no idea how to get through everything that had to happen first. Which brings me to where I fit in all of this. I'm a real estate professional working with families navigating inherited property in Orange County. I want to remind you, I'm a realtor, but the way I work looks nothing like a traditional transaction. I don't come in and put a sign in the yard and hand you a contract. I come in as a coordinator, as a resource, as someone who's done this enough times to know what landmines are and where to find the right out. My job is to understand your situation, the family dynamics, the property, the timeline, the disagreements, and help you figure out the path forward. That protects everyone's interest and makes the process actually manageable. I work as part of a team I've built over time. Attorneys who handle the legal side, CPAs who handle the tax questions, estate liquidators, personal property specialists, organizers, clean-out crews, contractors for everything from cosmetic updates to major deferred maintenance, spot and odor remediation, movers, and donation coordination. When you work with me, you're not getting a single person and a business card. You're getting access to an entire support system that's been built for families in this situation. And I want to say something directly because I know some of you have had experience with realtors that made you hesitate. My goal is never to push you forward, a decision you're not ready for. My goal is to make sure you understand your options, all of them, so that when a decision is made, it's made by your family with full information in a way everyone can live with. If you're in the middle of a sibling disagreement right now, here's what I want you to do. Before the next conversation happens, make a list of what each person actually needs, not just what they want, what they're protecting, what would make this feel okay. The disagreements that seem unsolvable are usually covering something deeper, and when you can get to that, solutions start to appear. And if you want a professional perspective on your particular situation, someone who navigated this before and can give you a clear picture of what your options are, reach out. The link is in the description. No pressure, no pitch, just a conversation. I have more videos coming on sibling buyouts, the partition process in California, and how to handle the sibling who's living in the house. If those topics would help you, subscribe so you don't miss them. Thank you for spending this time with me. I know this isn't easy. You're doing the right thing by educating yourself, and I hope this has helped you. Wow. Yes. Oh, no. Yes. Let me help you. Mm-hmm.